This is a review of Ocean of Storms by Christopher Mari and Jeremy K. Brown. It is published by 47 North. That is Amazon's own imprint for fantasy and science fiction. And not too surprisingly, I found this book through an ad that was pushed on my Kindle by Amazon. So obviously they know how to promote their own books, and they give their own books a lot of priority when they promote them. So that's why I found this book, and I decided to give it a shot, although I wasn't too thrilled with the cover. I actually thought it was a thriller. I didn't realize at the time that it was promoted by Amazon's own fantasy and science fiction. So I didn't realize it was science fiction even. I thought it was a thriller, but it did sound interesting because it was about a trip to the moon. And you might say, well, obviously that should have been a clue to you that it was science fiction, maybe, but it also did have a lot of thriller elements, so I wasn't completely off for it being a thriller. I think they were trying to go for both of those markets, and that's why they had the cover they did, which was a very kind of bland cover, but just suggestive of action and danger. This book felt to me like reading another book out of the golden age of hard science fiction. That was really exciting. I really like hard science fiction. This was set in the near future, and everything felt very realistic about how you're going to plan a moonshot today. We already have done it before, and yet that doesn't make it necessarily very easy. And to give it that Cold War feel, because the Soviet Union is gone, the enemy country that we are fighting against yet cooperating with, trying to not go to war with in this story is China. It plays the exact same role as the Soviet Union does in 2010. Whether you've read that book or especially if you've seen the movie version, it reminded me of that so much, because there's this crisis that's going on, and they actually compare it to the Cuban Missile Crisis, and this crisis is going on while our heroes are up in space with a joint mission with the Chinese. Now, there was another element where there were some bad guys on the Earth that were trying to sabotage the book. I wasn't actually too thrilled about that at first. I really liked the book about Mars, The Martian, because one of the things he did in that book is that he didn't have any villain. The only villain in that book was Mars itself. I loved that. That is so rare. You see that so seldom in fantasy or science fiction. It's hard to do. I've tried to write a book without a villain except for the environment before, and it's impossible. And of course, he had the entire planet of Mars, so he had a good running start to write a book like that. I thought this book could have had the same thing. Now, later on in the book, I'm trying to do a book review without spoilers. Later on, there was a reason for those villains on Earth that did tie in pretty well to the plot, so I don't know if he could have left them out or not. How much can I say without doing spoilers? There was a twist 2/3 of the way through that almost lost me on this book. In fact, I kind of started to speed read past that point because I felt like we were getting into thriller territory and we had left the science fiction behind. Now, it turns out I was wrong. There was another twist that I didn't quite see coming. Yeah, I didn't see it coming. And that was good, and it almost redeemed the entire book for me, but not quite. That's the end of my spoiler-free. Now I want to talk a little more freely about the book, and this may have too many spoilers for people, so I'm trying to delineate when I do the spoiler-free part of the review versus the not spoiler-free. The twist that came 2/3 of the way through is that up until now, this book had been sold as near future science fiction, very hard science fiction, and also very, very believable, very realistic, almost in thriller territory, which is technology that either we already have or that we could conceivably have within the next 10 to 15 years. Then suddenly 2/3 of the way through, I thought, oh my God, they jumped the shark, because they were investigating this spaceship that was on the moon and had been on the moon for 2 million years. That part I already knew at the beginning, and I thought it was going to be a first contact novel, but instead it turns out to be a time travel novel because the ship is from the future. Now, here's where the book began to lose it for me, because what I had been enjoying so much about this book is that it was old science fiction-y attitude, not just plot. That is, it had this very positive attitude towards technology, towards space travel, towards exploring new worlds and new ideas and new technologies, and it had this go out and get them. You're never going to do anything if you just sit on your ass. Go do it. Don't be afraid of technology. Technology is a good thing. A very positive, pro-future kind of book. And then suddenly we find out, oh gosh, people from the future, from this horrible dystopia that's come about from the abuse of this technology, which up until now had not really been in the book. I knew it was going to factor in somehow because there were little hints put in, but I didn't see it factoring in like this. And now suddenly this entire book became the kind of dystopia that I don't like. And my entire problem with the entire field of dystopia, which is that dystopias often are anti-technology and this kind of X-Files, fear the future kind of attitude, which I hate. I like the future. I like new ideas. I like new technologies. And I don't think we gain anything as a human race by being afraid of new technology. Yes, every new technology technology brings danger and it brings opportunity, and that's just the nature of the beast. And I don't understand why you would have this anti-technology theme in a science fiction book, which up until now seemed like it had been saying the opposite. That made me so depressed that, as I said, I kind of just sort of started skimming the book, and I thought, is this the direction it's going? It's really going to deconstruct the whole thing, that it seems to be doing a pastiche of these, kind of 1960s, we will be on the moon by the year 2010. Yeah, that happened. I mean, we were on the moon before that, but we didn't have colonies on the moon or around Jupiter. And I thought, oh no, it's going to deconstruct everything, and that's the kind of thing I'm sick and tired of it in science fiction. I want to see good, classic, hard science fiction that's pro-science, not anti-science. And this felt like it was taking an anti-science turn. Then suddenly there was another twist, and I was like, okay, now that's interesting, because it turns out that these people from the future sent back 2 ships. Now this is definitely going to get into spoilers, but I want to discuss the theme of the book. The structure of the book, the writing of the book, the science in the book, the science fiction in the book, all of that was good. If that's what you like in a book, go buy this book and read it. It's terrific, and you'll like that. Now I want to talk about the theme. The execution of the book was fine. I'm going to talk about the theme as a reader rather than criticizing it as a writer. These people from the future, it turns out that the technology that has created them is genetic engineering and cloning. And this is where the book takes this very anti-genetic engineering and cloning. And I don't like that, because I'm a genetically engineered human being. I was created in a lab by a mad scientist. Okay, I'm not kidding, but maybe I know somebody who was. Maybe I do. Maybe I have someone in my family like that. And I don't like that person being treated like some sort of misfit from the future. And I think that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where when we get clones, which are just twins of people, for God's sakes, people, why are you freaking out about clones? That people are going to treat them badly just because science fiction has prepped them to do so. Anyway, my personal rant. So they go on about how this evil clone future has created this horrible dystopia, and they've come back into the past to fix it, but they messed up and they went back 2 million years into the past. So then they find this other ship, and this is where the second twist that kind of seemed to like it was going to reverse everything, but didn't quite. The second twist is that they went back in time and they didn't find any humans of our type, which is what they were seeking, their immediate progenitor race that they had driven to extinction through their own stupidity. And so instead they have an Australopithecine, and they're like mixing the DNA, and that actually, this twist was actually cool. I think this is what makes it a really popular book, I have to say. That twist is actually what created human beings, Homo sapiens sapien as we know it, is that it was a mix with this creature from the future, so we are sort of our own gods. We played God, and we created our own species through this bizarre, paradoxical time loop. Now here's the thing I didn't understand. After the first twist, where it's like, oh, there's these clones in this technology, don't use genetic and engineering, you have to go stop this evil corporation from using this. Oh, and the 2 villains on Earth, by the way, who've been sabotaging everything, were a businessman and a general, because that's original. Yeah. But they were doing it because they had already found this second ship, and that's where they got the idea for the technology. So in fact, the people from the future not only created human beings as an entire species, but also were the ones who gave the technology that eventually led to their own creation. So yeah, they really should have been arrested by the time cops. But what was not addressed, and what I thought could have saved the entire book as far as I was concerned, was the realization by the current heroes of this time that, well, oh my gosh, we were going to stop everything. We were going to stop them from evolving because we didn't want them to evolve, because that's a mistake. It will lead to the extinction of the human race as we know it now, and possibly even to the extinction of that future human race, because they won't be genetically diverse enough to survive a disease. But if we eliminate them from developing into the future, we also eliminate us from ever evolving in our own past. So that would have been a very interesting conundrum, it seems to me, that they could no longer go to that company and say, you're an evil company, don't you dare develop this genetic engineering technology, because in fact, if they don't develop it, well, then the people who actually become the people who start the human race aren't even going to exist. So it seems like you're going to shoot your own grandfather here. It was totally the grandfather paradox on a species scale. So there were some things I liked about this book and some things that I questioned about it, but you know what? When I sat down and thought about it, I thought that's what makes good science fiction. Making you question your own assumptions. It doesn't have to agree with what you believe in. It has to make you think about what you believe in. That's what good science fiction should do. So even though some parts kind of made me mad, in the end I thought, well, good. That meant I was engaged in it, and it wasn't so stupid that I just threw it against the wall, because when I really gave it, I'm glad I finished it. When I gave it a chance, it really made me think, and it really made me think about how can we avoid the bad parts of genetic engineering or space travel or time travel, because, you know, that's a very pressing problem in their current time, is people abusing time travel. But it really made me think about that, and that's what I love science fiction for. So hopefully you stopped this way before you got to any spoilers, unless you're the kind of person like me who doesn't care about spoilers. This was a surprise to me, especially the second twist. Actually, even the first twist, but I just thought it was stupid at that point. But when I got to the second twist, everything paid off. The first twist paid off, and I liked it, and I thought, okay, this is a damn good book. I'm glad I read it. That's my review. Tara out.